I stood in the doorway of our master bedroom, my phone trembling in my hand as I read the text message that had just landed. The words blurred together, but one phrase kept jumping out at me. "She's not your princess anymore." My heart dropped into my stomach. I had no idea who had sent it or what the hell they meant. All I knew was that everything I'd built, everything I believed in, was about to come crashing down around me. 3 months earlier, everything had been perfect. Picture perfect, actually. I'm Michael Harrison, 42 years old, and I'd spent the last decade building a commercial real estate empire that had made me wealthy beyond what I'd ever imagined as a kid growing up in a working-class neighborhood in Cleveland. I owned properties across Ohio and Pennsylvania, office buildings, retail centers, a shopping mall outside Pittsburgh that pulled in 7 figures annually. My net worth was hovering around $8 million, and I wasn't slowing down. But the real treasure wasn't my bank account. It was Ashley. I met her at a charity gala in Columbus, the kind of event where wealthy people went to write off donations and feel good about themselves. She was wearing a pale gold dress that made her look like she'd stepped out of a painting, and she was barefoot. Actual bare feet on the marble floor of the Hilton ballroom. When I asked her why, she laughed and said heels were a conspiracy invented by men who wanted to control women's pain tolerance. I was hooked immediately. Ashley was 28, a freelance photographer and artist who had grown up in foster care and had fought her way to independence without a safety net. She had this raw authenticity that nobody else in my circle possessed. While my ex-wife Karen had been obsessed with status and designer labels, Ashley didn't care about any of that. She wanted experiences. She wanted adventure. She wanted me to be present, not just present with my wallet. We got married 14 months after that gala. The wedding was small, just 200 people at an estate outside Columbus, with a garden ceremony and a reception under string lights. Ashley walked down the aisle barefoot, naturally. Her foster care social worker, Linda, cried the whole time. My mother couldn't stop talking about how unconventional it all was, and not in a complimentary way. But I didn't care what anyone thought. This felt right. The first year of our marriage was like being inside one of her photographs. We traveled to places that weren't on anyone's Instagram feed. A small village in Vermont, a cabin in the Smoky Mountains, a beach town in North Carolina that tourists never reached. Ashley would take pictures of everything. Me laughing at a diner counter, the light hitting a barn at dawn, strangers dancing at a local festival. She created a coffee table book from those images that actually sold 3,000 copies. She was building something real. At home, we lived in the house I'd bought before I met her, a 5-bedroom colonial in Westerville with a wraparound porch and 3 acres of land. Ashley had transformed it into something magical. She painted the kitchen a warm cream color and filled it with plants. She created a studio space in the guest house where she worked on her photography projects. She adopted 2 rescue dogs, Gatsby and Scout, and they followed her everywhere like she was their queen. I started calling her my barefoot princess, and the name stuck. Our life had rhythms that felt different from anything I'd experienced before. We'd wake up early, drink coffee on the back porch while she showed me the photos she'd taken the day before. We'd go to farmers markets on Saturdays and buy weird vegetables neither of us knew how to cook. We'd invite Linda over for Sunday dinners and listen to her stories about the foster care system. We had friends, real friends, not business contacts pretending to be friends. Life felt genuine. Financially, I made sure Ashley never had to worry. I set up an investment account with $100,000 in her name. I told her to spend whatever she wanted on photography equipment. I covered all the household expenses, the property taxes on the house, everything. She didn't ask for it. I wanted to provide this for her. She had survived so much in her life, and I wanted her to finally know what it felt like to be secure. That's when the first strange thing happened. It was a Tuesday evening in late September. I was in my home office reviewing contracts for a new shopping center acquisition when Ashley came in with her laptop. She seemed nervous, which was unusual. Ashley was the kind of person who didn't get nervous about much. Hey, can I ask you something? She said, perching on the edge of my desk. Of course, what's up? How would you feel about me starting an online course, like teaching photography to people remotely? I looked up from my screen. That's great. Why would I have a problem with that? She bit her lip. I don't know. I just wanted to make sure you were okay with me doing something bigger, like actually building a business instead of just doing freelance gigs. I pulled her close to me. Ash, I want you to do whatever makes you happy. You don't need my permission for anything. You never did. You're not my princess because you need me to take care of you. You're my princess because you're incredible. She hugged me tight, but something in that moment felt off. There was a tension in her body I couldn't quite identify. When she pulled away, she was smiling, but it wasn't her real smile. It was the smile she used when she was hiding something. That was the beginning of the end, though I didn't know it yet. Over the next 6 weeks, I watched Ashley transform before my eyes. The online photography course launched in October, and it took off faster than either of us expected. Within 3 weeks, she had 200 students enrolled. Within 2 months, over 1,000. She was making real money. Not the kind of money I made, but genuine income earned from her own work. And something shifted in her when that happened. She stopped coming to bed at the same time as me. She'd stay up late in her studio, working on curriculum videos and responding to student messages. She'd wake up early and go for long runs before I was even conscious. The barefoot walks through the house became less frequent. More often, I'd find her in the guest house with the door closed, her phone pressed to her ear, talking in hushed tones that stopped the moment I appeared. I told myself it was just the excitement of entrepreneurship. I told myself I was being paranoid. But then came the credit card statement. It was a Thursday evening in late November. I was reviewing our household finances, something I'd always done, not because I didn't trust Ashley, but because I'm the kind of person who likes to know where every dollar is going. Our joint credit card showed a charge I didn't recognize. $5,000 to something called Creative Ventures LLC in Columbus. My stomach twisted. I called Ashley into my home office. She was wearing one of my old Columbia Business School sweatshirts, and her hair was in a messy bun. She looked tired. Hey, can you explain this charge? I asked, turning the screen toward her. She glanced at it, and her face went pale. Oh, that what? I was going to tell you, she said, sitting down slowly. I just needed to figure out how to say it. Say what, Ashley? She took a breath. I'm starting a second business, an online education platform, not just courses. I'm partnering with someone to build it properly. The $5,000 is my initial investment. The room felt like it was tilting. You invested $5,000 of our money without telling me? It's not our money, she said quietly. It's my money, from my course revenue. We're married. It's our money. No, Michael, it's my money. Money I earned, and I'm allowed to invest it in my future without getting permission from you first. That word, permission, hit me like a slap. I never said you needed my permission. I said you should have told me. I'm your husband. We talk about decisions like this. Do we? She asked, and there was an edge in her voice I'd never heard before. Or do you tell me what you think is best, and I smile and agree because I'm supposed to be the grateful foster kid who's grateful to be saved? I stared at her. That's not fair. Isn't it? She stood up. You set up an account with $100,000 in my name like I'm a child you're giving an allowance to. You pay for everything, the house, the utilities, the food. You call me your barefoot princess like I'm some kind of decoration. And now you're upset because I want to build something that's actually mine? I've never stopped you from building anything, I said, my voice rising. Everything you've done, I've supported. You've supported it because you thought it was cute, she snapped. A little side hobby for your wife. But now that I'm actually making money, now that I'm becoming independent, you're freaking out. I'm not freaking out. I'm concerned. And I'm hurt that you didn't tell me. She grabbed her car keys from the desk. I'm going out for a while. I need to think. She left before I could respond. That night, I lay in bed alone, staring at the ceiling, my mind racing. I pulled out my phone and did something I'd never done before. I checked the detailed transaction history on our joint credit card. The $5,000 to Creative Ventures LLC had been preceded by smaller charges, $500 here, $800 there, to places like Greystone Coffee, Hilton Columbus Downtown, Adobe Creative Cloud subscription. Charges I'd never noticed before because I wasn't looking. I opened a search engine and typed Creative Ventures LLC, Columbus, Ohio. The first result was a company website. I clicked through. The team page had 5 people listed. One of them made my blood run cold. Brandon Mitchell, 34 years old, described as a digital strategy expert and entrepreneur. There was a photo of him in a navy blazer, smiling with the kind of confidence that comes from knowing you're good-looking and having everyone tell you so your entire life. I searched his name, LinkedIn profile, Instagram account, photos from tech conferences, photos at restaurants I'd never taken Ashley to, photos with a group of young professionals that looked like a startup culture dream team. And then, buried in a folder in Ashley's cloud backup that I could still access from her account, something I felt guilty accessing but did anyway, I found a series of photos. Ashley at a coffee shop across from Brandon. Ashley laughing at something he was saying. Ashley with her hand on his arm. The photos were from 2 weeks ago. My hands were shaking. I called her. "Where are you?" I asked when she picked up. "I'm at Linda's," she said. Linda was her foster care social worker, the woman who'd cried at our wedding. I needed to talk to someone. "Are you sleeping with Brandon Mitchell?" The silence on the other end of the line lasted so long I thought the call had dropped. "Michael, answer the question." "It's not that simple," she said. I hung up. She called back 7 times. I didn't answer any of them. The next morning, I called my divorce attorney, James Kellerman, a man I'd used for various business matters over the years. He had an opening at 9 a.m. I told him everything. He listened without interrupting, taking notes in his legal pad, his face remaining neutral. When I finished, he sat back in his chair. "Here's what we're going to do," he said. "First, you need to document everything. Print out those photos, that transaction history, all of it. Second, I'm going to have my assistant prepare a separation agreement. You have substantial assets, and if there's infidelity involved, Ohio law allows us to argue for a disproportionate division in your favor. Third, you should secure your financial accounts, change passwords, freeze the credit cards, get everything locked down." "What about the house?" I asked. "The house is marital property. It'll likely be part of the division. But Michael, listen to me. You need to move fast here. Once she realizes you know, she'll lawyer up and things get complicated. I'd recommend you have her served with divorce papers within the week." I felt sick. This wasn't how I'd imagined my life going. That afternoon, I went home. Ashley's car was in the driveway. She was in the kitchen, standing by the window, her eyes red from crying. "Please," she said the moment she saw me. "Let me explain." "I don't want to hear it." "Michael, it's not what you think. Brandon and I are just—" "Don't," I said, holding up my hand. "I know about the photos. I know about the hotel charges. I don't need the details." She started crying harder. "You went through my cloud backup? How could you? How could I?" I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "How could you, Ashley? You married me. You took my name. You said you loved me." "I do love you," she sobbed. "That's what makes this so complicated. I love you, but I don't love the life I'm living with you. I love who you are when we're alone, but I hate who I've become. I feel like I'm disappearing into your world, Like I'm just an accessory to your success. So you decided to cheat? I didn't plan it, she said. Brandon and I started working together on the platform, and he understood me in a way you don't. He doesn't have $1 billion. He doesn't have all these expectations. He just sees me as a person, not as his barefoot princess. The way she said that phrase I'd always said with love, it felt like she was throwing it back in my face. I want you to move out, I said quietly. I'm having papers drawn up. My attorney will be in touch with you within the week. Michael, please, don't, I said again. I can't listen to this right now. I walked upstairs to the bedroom, packed a bag, and checked into the Hilton near my office. I didn't know what else to do. The divorce papers were served to Ashley on a Tuesday morning. James had structured them carefully, citing infidelity and requesting that I retain primary ownership of all properties purchased before the marriage, plus 70% of the liquid assets. Ashley would receive the guest house, which we valued at $600,000, plus $1.2 million in liquid assets, roughly 20% of what was in our joint accounts. She called me immediately after. You can't be serious, she said. Her voice was shaking. Michael, I'm your wife. We can work through this. We're working through it with our attorneys, I said flatly. That's how this works now. This is punishment, she said. You're punishing me for not being grateful enough. No, I said. This is divorce. This is what happens when you betray someone's trust and then try to gaslight them into thinking they're the problem. She hung up. For the next 3 weeks, I threw myself into work. I closed the shopping center acquisition ahead of schedule. I reviewed 3 new property deals. I stayed late at the office, worked weekends, did anything to avoid going back to the Hilton and sitting alone with my thoughts. My mother called. She'd heard about the separation from someone at the country club. Instead of offering sympathy, she said, I told you that girl was trouble. Too young, too unstable, too... I hung up on her too. Linda reached out by email. She asked if she could talk to me, said that Ashley was going through something difficult and that there might be context I wasn't aware of. I didn't respond. Then, 4 weeks after I'd checked into the hotel, James called me with news. Ashley's attorney just made a settlement offer, he said. It's interesting. They're willing to accept the original terms, the guest house, $1.2 million, but they're asking for something else. What? They want you to release a statement saying that the marriage ended due to irreconcilable differences, not infidelity. They want the infidelity claim removed from the public record. Apparently, the Brandon Mitchell situation has become public. He's part of a venture capital group that's about to announce a major funding round for Ashley's platform. If the infidelity is part of the divorce record, it could complicate their investor relations. I felt something cold settle in my chest. They want me to make them look better. Essentially, yes, in exchange for accepting all your original terms without contest. No, I said immediately. Tell them absolutely not. Michael, this is actually a good outcome for you. You keep everything, she goes away quietly, and you avoid a lengthy court battle. I don't care. If she wants to build a business with the guy she cheated on me with, that's her choice. But she doesn't get to rewrite the story. She doesn't get to pretend this was some amicable split. She doesn't get to protect her reputation at the cost of mine. Your call, James said, but I'd think about it. The longer this drags out, the more it costs you emotionally and financially. I hung up and called my office. I told my assistant I was taking a week off. I needed to think. That night, I found myself driving past the house. The lights were on in the guest house, Ashley's studio. I could see her silhouette moving behind the glass. She was probably working on something for her course, or the new platform, or whatever came next for her. A year ago, I would have pulled into the driveway, walked in there, and held her. I would have asked her what she was working on, and she would have shown me, and we would have sat together in that comfortable silence that felt like home. Now I just sat in my car in the dark and wondered where I'd gone wrong. The next morning, I woke up in the Hilton with a clarity I hadn't felt in weeks. I called James. "Tell them I'll agree to the settlement," I said, "but I want something in return." "What?" "They're going to make a public statement too. Ashley is going to tell her students, on camera, that Brandon Mitchell was instrumental in helping her build her platform. She's going to thank me for supporting her growth, even as we decided to go our separate ways. And she's going to be honest about the fact that our marriage couldn't survive her becoming her own person." "Michael, I'm not asking her to trash him or herself," I continued. "I'm asking for the truth. And if they won't agree to that, we go to trial, and I'll make sure every detail comes out. Their choice." There was a pause on the line. Then James said, "That's actually brilliant. It reframes the whole thing without being vindictive. Let me present it." 2 hours later, James called back. They'd agreed. The video was released 2 weeks later on Ashley's YouTube channel. She sat in front of her camera, makeup minimal, hair pulled back, looking exhausted and raw. "I want to be honest with you," she said to the camera, "especially to my students who have supported me and trusted me. My marriage to Michael ended because I made choices that hurt him deeply. I fell in love with someone else while I was married. That was a betrayal, and there's no amount of context or explanation that changes that fundamental fact. Michael gave me a gift when he married me. He gave me security and support and freedom to build something, and I repaid that by being unfaithful. But here's what I also want to say. I was struggling. I was losing myself in the role of the grateful foster kid who had been saved by a rich man. I was becoming a character in someone else's story, instead of the author of my own. That's not an excuse. It's an explanation. Brandon helped me see that I could be independent. And yes, that became something more. But the person I need to thank first is Michael. Because despite what I did, he's letting me walk away with my dignity intact. He's letting me build my platform and my business without trying to destroy me in the process. I'm going to be better. I'm going to do the work to understand why I made the choices I made. And I'm going to build something real, not just for myself, but to help other people who've come from nothing, like I did, figure out how to become something." Then she cried, and the video ended. I watched it in my office, and I cried too. Not because I wanted her back, but because it was finally the truth. The settlement was finalized 3 weeks later. Ashley got the guest house, the $1.2 million, and her freedom. I kept the main house, my properties, and my dignity. Brandon's venture capital round closed at $12 million. The platform that Ashley and Brandon were building launched officially the following spring and attracted thousands of users. I didn't hate them. Surprisingly, I didn't feel much of anything about them anymore. What I felt was a slow recognition that I had been complicit in my own downfall. I had loved Ashley, but I had loved the idea of her more. The barefoot princess, the authentic woman who made my life feel real. I had given her everything except the one thing she actually needed, the space to become herself without me. 6 months after the divorce was final, Linda reached out to me. We met for coffee at a place downtown neither of us had been before. "I wanted to talk to you," she said, "because I think you deserve to understand what was happening with Ashley before she met Brandon." I listened as she told me that Ashley had been in therapy, trying to work through her trauma from foster care. She had been struggling with the loss of autonomy, the way she'd become dependent on me financially and emotionally. She had been terrified of disappointing me. And yes, she had made terrible choices in response to those feelings. But she wasn't the villain in this story, and neither was I. "People are complicated," Linda said, "especially people who've survived what Ashley survived. She needed you to be her partner, not her savior. And you needed her to be your barefoot princess instead of just your wife." I nodded. It was the kindest thing anyone had said to me in months. 2 years later, I was at a commercial real estate conference in Columbus when I saw them. Ashley and Brandon, walking through the lobby of the convention center, her hand in his, laughing about something. She was wearing shoes, nice ones, and she looked happy. I thought about walking over, saying hello, wishing them well, but I didn't. Some stories don't need a reunion scene. Some people need to be allowed to move forward without the past following them. Instead, I finished my coffee and went back to my hotel room. I had learned something valuable through all of this, something that no amount of money or success could have taught me. You can't love someone into being the person you want them to be. You can only love them for who they are. And if who they are doesn't align with who you need them to be, then sometimes the most loving thing you can do is let them go. The barefoot princess had left the castle, and in the end, she had found her crown.